Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to a novelog featuring editing. I feel like most of these videos are about editing, but that's like the longest process for me. Obviously aside from the first draft, but the first draft as a whole is kind of a monster in its own, but maybe we'll look at that when we are diving into book 3 a bit more. So as you know, or rather if you're new here, I should probably start from the beginning. My first book came out this past January, and that book was Tower of Dogs, which is a kind of fantasy dystopian where a brother and sister are separated as the world around them is like starting to have its magic, which I call nature, brought back. The brother is kind of torn between his responsibilities with his brotherhood, essentially found family he has, and going after his sister, who is his only living family member. On the flip side of that, his sister is in the sanctuary, taken in by a very prevalent family. While she's there, some other mysteries start to unravel around the nature coming back and the world changing. That's a very soft description of book 1. Book 2 is scheduled to come out on November 12th, 2022. Gonna be 2 book releases this year. Beta readers are finishing up and they should have it back to me by the end of the month. It's June 27th right now. But regardless, I'm in another round of edits myself. So the thing with writing a series that I've learned from working on my Kuro Kenshin graphic novels and my With the Cherry on Top is making sure things are consistent throughout. With this being my first novel series, I'm trying to do my best, and I might be just doing extra work, but at the same time, the more that I can do is less that the editor needs to do, and it's less chance of error moving forward. At least that's what I think. Right now, I am actually rereading my first book, and I already had a document with like some character notes, like their descriptions, world building, background notes for myself, but it was all just in a like 20 or so page document. It was good, but it was just daunting to look at because it was so much, and it wasn't even completed. So every time I went and completed it, I'd see all the blank spaces and I'd be like, well, where do I even start? Well, the answer was just to start over. I currently have 3 more documents. I still have the original one with all my like world building notes and my language notes, but I have a character document, a locations document, and then a Berserker and Beast document, since we do run into some fantastical kind of creatures and peoples, and it just made sense to reread everything, with the goal being like I don't want to write anything contradictory to what I've already published, but there's always going to be like some mistakes or some typo, which is nice because I get to reread through. So each time I reread my book, I'm essentially editing it a little bit and catching some typos and whatnot. I'm not planning on re-releasing though until the trilogy is complete, because I want to try and do audiobooks and like re-release the whole trilogy and do a thing. Maybe some illustrations in there. Basically just taking any information that I have written in the book, so not just based on my document, because some things have been changed. So taking everything I have in here, making sure it's up to date with the published version, so that way when I get my beta reader feedback and I'm going through book 2, I can cross-check all that information with character descriptions and the way that doors work. That's the one I'm kind of upset about, because I wrote where the door comes out on one way and the other door goes in, and I wanted them flipped for my scene. So we'll see if I can edit my scene or if it's just gonna be a post-edit thing. Not entirely sure, so I'll let you know when I get to that part. So it's a lot. Like I have 1 page per each character, and then a couple for like groups, and I have 40 pages. Individual named characters of varying importance, there's 36, 37. That's a lot. And that's a lot to keep track of, but this is all gonna go toward creating my my world encyclopedia, which I call the AGI Archives. More on that probably at least next year, if not later, because that's where we're at right now. I'm just glad that I'm able to film, because I dropped my phone in a cup of water yesterday. The only thing that still is showing moisture is my front facing camera, like my rear facing camera. So the main one that takes all my pictures. Not too excited about that, but we're making progress. We're doing our best. And so I'm going to keep on working on this over the next couple days, and then we should be getting into beta feedback. It is now July 7th, and I just got the last bit of beta reader feedback that I was waiting for. Overall, the responses were very positive. People enjoyed the book. Some said they enjoyed book 2 more than book 1 just because there was a bit more action and more development with the characters, so yay. Also, no pressure. Oh, this third book is much more daunting with that feedback because I don't want to drop the ball at the end. I don't have a history of writing very strong endings, so I'm definitely going to really work on book 3, which is why I'm not like forcing myself to write it now. I really want to get these edits and everything solid in book 2 before doing that. So I'm still just going to sit at 21,000 words for book 3 for probably another month or so. That's fine. So things that my beta readers responded to in particular, some of these are just like, hey, I kind of noticed switch between metric systems. Like I used meters and then I would use inches or feet, which obviously are different standards that we're used to. In the US, we use inches and feet and yards, but in like the UK or pretty much anywhere else in the world, they use meters, kilometers, centimeters, etc. And I lived in Japan for 4 years, so I've lived with both systems. So when I write, I don't really use centimeters. Like I'll use inches, feet, and then I'll use meters specifically. And I did look back while I was rereading book 1, and I used both. I even had a sticky note to follow up with that, and I remember doing it, and I think I just got to the point where I had to describe something that way. I'm not entirely sure what my thought process was at the end of the editing regarding the metric system. Part of me wants to say that I was just like, this is my world and we use both. That's not always acceptable. It was a small thing they pointed out. I'm definitely aware of it. So if it's something that I can correct or need to correct, then I will, and I'll probably go for meters. Maybe that one, the universal system. Some of the other comments that I got were just things needing a little more clarification, like how much time between books 1 and book 2 had passed at the beginning. I did mention it, but like I tend to like mention things in passing, or I think I'll mention it early enough, but it's really like chapter 4. So for like 3 chapters, you don't know what the timeline is. Just to put in a couple notes on that, just to like really solidify where you guys are at. There were also a few subplots as well as reveals in the second book that, again, I needed a little bit more clarification on. Someone felt that I did not pursue to the point that it should have been pursued in this book. So I just got that feedback and I'm processing it. It's a subplot that means something to me because it shows a certain character's, not quite their development, but their actual person, since there's someone that generally is disliked, and he is a really dislikable person. However, there is a limit to what he will do. Like he treats the lower citizens very, very poorly, but he's also a doctor's assistant. So he swore an oath, kind of like, not necessarily that they have the same Hippocratic oath, but he's sworn to help and protect people. So there is a limit to what he will do or won't do for a person. So I kind of want to keep it in there. Maybe I will just wrap it up a bit better so it's clear. I thought I might investigate it a bit more in book 3, but because it is such a smaller subplot, I agree that I need to possibly address it a bit more. There's that. I do have a prophecy going on, and I'm dealing with trying to explain it without explaining too much. The whole conception of prophecies and visions or destinies is viewed differently throughout the timeline in my universe, but overall, it's not something that's so present in the present timeline, but in the prequels and stuff where you actually have prophet and other people who can see certain things, we get more of the perceptions of it and then the validity of said prophecies. And that was something that I was trying to play with, or like play on the trope of having a prophecy. To put it simply without spoiling, because I don't even know how many people are gonna watch this, so it doesn't really matter. But I essentially, instead of the prophecy being one way, one person, that's it, said and done, there's a lot of room for misinterpretation and not necessarily wiggle room. Who is the one, the chosen one? But there is a certain condition that needs to be met, but also it relies more on the setting than just the character. Working on it, it's an experiment, needs to be clarified a little bit. So yeah, they gave me a lot to think about, and now that I can like have it going on in the back of my brain, I can go back into my draft and start nitpicking myself. There are a few things that I'm going to be addressing in this, which I think this is actually going to be draft 4 officially. So my approach for this draft is to use Edit Out Loud, which is a free app that will read back your documents to you. And if you choose the right voice, it makes you feel like it's an audiobook, and it's such a great experience. But I use this to read aloud while I'm going through a document, because I will hear mistakes before I really see them sometimes, just because I'm so used to looking at it and my eyes end up skimming. So having an auditory source really helps me pick out repetition, word variants, odd sounding sentences, just simple typos. Like I said, it is a free app that you can download. I think it is across all platforms like Android, Apple. When I downloaded it, I believe it came with a bunch of different voices. Now it might be like a separate pack that you have to download. I'm not entirely sure, since I just have a bazillion voices on mine. I like American Number 4. That gentleman is who I would like to have for Rome. It's semi-robotic, but if you listen to it long enough, it becomes a bit more natural. The only time that it doesn't necessarily bug me, but it stands out and I'm just like, ooh, is when they mispronounce some of my words, like agi, they'll say agi, and I'm just like, that's so silly. So I catch it. I always check the spelling when they do that, just because I'm like, that's not what the word is. So they say like some of the words weird, but it's fine. I know they're gonna say them weird. I'm really looking for the rest of the reading. Other things to know about this app is the free version. You can upload up to 5 documents and it will read up to 7,000 words per doc. So if you're like me and you just trying to save money however you can, you're probably going to separate all your chapters, or even like a pair of chapters, depending on how long your chapters are, into 7,000 words or less, and upload 5 documents at a time, listen through them, delete, and upload 5 more. That's what I do. But in the paid version, to my knowledge, it's still $2.99 for a month. So you could upload your whole book and listen to the whole thing straight through. And I think I might try that at some point. But right now, since I'm doing edits chapter by chapter, it makes more sense for me to isolate what I'm working on anyway. So check out Edit Out Loud. I really recommend this app. If you ever want your book to be an audiobook, this will give you your initial feels of just like excitement. Yes, I would love the Idun Trilogy to be in audiobook format, but I'm not going to pursue that route until I have the trilogy done and edited probably one more time, because I'm not perfect. And then we'll do audiobooks and we'll pay all that money. Back to editing, because I keep going on tangents. My editor is going to receive my document August 15th. So I have just over a month to go through everything and do all the edits I want to do before it reaches her. Now on the 2nd of July, I did finally finish my reread of book 1. I completed all of my notes on characters, locations, lore, language, pretty much anything that I thought would need to be clarified or consistent in book 2. So I have all my notes as I'm going through draft 4 of this document. Other thing that I recommend doing before your book goes to an editor is, I mentioned word variants and just, word echo. I know when I'm drafting that a lot of people smile as their reaction, or they'll like make eye gestures. And I do it when I'm drafting because I'm just like visualizing the reaction and I know I'm possibly going to do something to it later, but I haven't done that quite yet. Certain eye gestures are like glancing, looking, watching, or their eyes, like they narrowed their eyes, they squinted, they yada yada. So I'm looking at the usage of those phrases. Obviously that is it's a different way to say the things, but I don't want my descriptors to just be eyes doing, I can't even do anything fancy with my eyes, so doing the things. Other ones, like I said, with the smiles. So I don't think I had too many like frowns or pouts or smirks. I know smiles was one, and maybe like variances of smiles I might have used too much, but the question then becomes, is it Does it give anything to that scene or that line that you need them to smile? Or if you take it out, does this meaning still stay the same? Can you still interpret it the same way? Keeping those in mind as well. And then I just thought up of a few words that I probably used a lot throughout this book. The whole document is like 122,000 words, mind you. The ones that I immediately thought of was like the word cold, dark, shadow, walk. And it's not that I have to change every single one or have it under a certain number. It's more of in that scene or in that line, is that the best word? Can we do it better? Is it needed at all? Those are like the 3 questions. And I think a lot of it is trial and error. So it does help to have feedback if there's anybody who can be like a critique partner or a beta reader to say, hey, does this make sense? Ideally, I will get through the entire book and then be able to listen through it again with edit out loud and all the corrections before it gets to the editor. That way I can catch anything that I've missed or changed. That's typically my process. So it is, like I said, it's July 7th. I was at least supposed to be at chapter 14, but I'm still on the first chapter because I just got my feedback back. So we are about a week behind, and I promise you, I planned this better. But then this fuzzball got an ear infection, so we had to take her to the vet, and other things happened. So yeah, not making excuses, just letting you know that we do run into obstacles. So I guess my final note in this clip before you guys see some progress is, between my book release and my next book release, so Tower of Dogs released in January, Dennis Barrows was scheduled to release in November. So that's 10 months. By the end of January, I had an entire first draft of 100,000 words. So I knew the core plus of my story. It wasn't just like I was starting it in January. The actual start date was June, July of last year, but I was kind of just making sporadic progress throughout the second half of last year. That's why I already had that amount in, and that's why it's like almost a year and a half, or rounding up a year and a half from book start to release. But essentially I consider the 10-month period that I'm in right now to be my editing 10 months. Last year I started editing book 1 in March-ish with doing like heavy development. So, and that was about a 10-month period until the release as well. So I'm starting to get an idea of how long it takes me to do certain things for this length of a book and for this story that I've already pretty much got a lot of the world developments figured out. So that helps me moving forward with book 3. Once I get a first draft done, it should be 10 months in theory. We'll see. Like I said, I'm super nervous about book 3 because it does all the things. And I am very, very willing and accepting if anybody would love to read books 1 and book 2 and then come with me on the journey and be like my critique partner for all the behind the scenes chaotic plot things. Please, if that is something you're into and you love doing, I could use an extra voice on my shoulder. But anyway, I'm going to show you guys what progress I've made right now. Welcome back for an editing update. It is July 13th. My birthday, for those who care. For those who don't, just forget about it. It's fine. I am currently editing chapter 25 of 27. I'd be done. Chapter 25 of 47 for my novel. I didn't quite stick to my calendar, which was editing 2 to 4 chapters per day, depending on if I worked or not. But I did manage to catch up, essentially. I was done with chapter 22 on Monday, and I think that was my goal for like Sunday, so I was like a day behind. I'm a couple days behind that now, but I had like made a very strict schedule. If we're going by this schedule, I'm still behind, but I made a very strict schedule because I knew that I would not be consistent, which is a very actually bad mindset to go into things with. But in any case, it does look like I am well, I guess, ahead of schedule to have this draft done before it goes to my editor. And I do have some notes. I just set you down because I was moving you all kinds of places, but I do have some notes so far that I actually want to essentially check again once this draft is over. So what my process has been is listening with edit out loud for each chapter. And then if I get to a spot that jars me when I'm listening, usually it's not just because the sentence structure is a little off. Sometimes I will have the epiphany of a better word to use, or I will, go through the whole paragraph and be like, no, I can reword this somehow. So I'll do on the spot edits with that. And I know a lot of the common words that I've been using. So when I see those, I kind of do an initial evaluation of them. If I can change them there, awesome. If not, and it's come up enough at least, I've written them down so that I can check how many there are at the end of the draft and go through and evaluate them once again. Overall, so far so good. I'm really enjoying going through the story again. I have not read it for 2, maybe 3 months. Like for the early part of the book, I probably haven't read it in 3 months. So a lot of it was actually really refreshing, and I was able to look at it with a more neutral eye because I couldn't predict exactly what was going to come. Like certain things with like small conversations and just like details on the setting or a certain character. So that was really nice to kind of just actually get into the book with almost like a new reader. So I'm going to keep going. I have Creative Commons in just under an hour. So I really need to get through 1, if not 2 more chapters, because that's what I want to do tonight. And hopefully the next time that I up you guys, I will be done with this draft. Ooh, the glare. The bags. Which one's better? The glare. We'll take the glare. I am in chapter 27 right now, exactly like 60% through the book. But this is the first part where I actually have to add in a scene. It was mentioned by one of my betas, and I kind of ran it across a couple of my other betas, just being like, does this make sense? Like, because it makes sense to me, and I just wanted to, again, get that confirmation that, like, do you think this would be helpful? Do you think it's necessary? And they were all kind of on the same page of, yeah, I think we need to add that in there just to strengthen a little bit more of the characters and to address something. So I do have to write in a scene, and it should be relatively short. I don't know if my brain is mentally ready to write at this second. I just edited through chapter 26 and the first half of chapter 27 to get to this scene. Figured out where it needs to go, but now that I'm like staring at it where it says, I need to do this scene, I'm just like, I want to, but at the same time, I don't know if I'm feeling it, which happened. I haven't been as consistently working on edits this week, even though it was my like week off. And I think that's because mentally I know my scheduled plan was more strict, and I've been doing different, like I know that it's different. The progress is different and I have time. And that is the procrastinator's worst excuse ever. Having the time to do the thing makes us put off doing the thing. So it is the same day. I only changed my shirt since I went and took the dogs for a walk. I played a little bit of Horizon Forbidden West. So this week I've definitely played it a few days, and now I'm like, okay, like I can play it, but I just want to like go hunt stuff, not necessarily play it to play it. In any case, I am here. It is now almost 9 o'clock, so it's been a few hours. But I'm here to write that, so I did need that break. And I also just checked, out of curiosity, the draft before I started my edits was 122,706, and I have cut that down by 530 words. Probably about to add that in with this scene. Sorry, editor, you got a long one coming. Okay, it is almost 11 now, and I did finish writing the scene. It added in like 700 words, maybe almost 800. It was really fun to write. Fun in like a weird... It wasn't like a fun scene by any means, but it was enjoyable because of it. I don't know. I just enjoyed writing it. I guess I enjoy giving my characters emotional things to deal with. Also, I went through the rest of chapter 27 and chapter 28. That puts me at chapter 29, with 294 of the 454 pages, or 456 pages, because apparently I added 2 pages by writing in that scene. But the word count right now is 122,900 even. We'll see if there's any more trimming coming in the second half of the book. Usually not. A lot of the ending chapters are very short, but they're like quick because it's the POVs switch quicker. I added 2 pages. Great. Hello. It is July 26th, and I finally, like a whole 10 days later than my plan over there, but that was like a super rushed, not rushed, but a hyper-focused plan. Finally finished going through draft 4 of Den of Sparrows. Thankfully, I didn't have to do too many big changes. I did add in a small scene, and then I trimmed some scenes near the end because there was some overlap when the POVs were switching. It was messing with the flow because it's an intense, like, action-packed scene at the end, and there was just so much overlap that you kind of went too far back in time. So we fixed that. We obviously did some copy edits and line edits along the way. Now we are going to address the list. Hello. Guess what day it is? Today's August 13th, and no, it's not the day that I finished doing all of these edits. I actually did finish them on July 31st. Like, I was literally done. I sent the email to my editor, gave her the new word count, and I was like, I can't look at it anymore. You know, you have this. I know you're not working on it for 2 weeks, but here, just take it. Just take it. So she's actually supposed to start that project this coming Monday. And I'm just now editing my self-edit video altogether. So I realized I could have sworn that I had filmed an update at the end, and I think I deleted it because I had to clear a lot of space off my phone and my computer. So here's the final update. The final word count that I got down this draft to is 119,601 words. So I definitely trimmed a lot in those last few chapters. And then when I went through and checked all of my overused words, I definitely got a lot of those cleaned up as well, which you could see in the list prior, or I could just show you it right here. So the biggest ones that kind of surprised me was the word back. I had used 621 times and I got it down to 398. And that does include, you know, backward, back as in like the physical part of your body, but I definitely overused it for like taking a step back or going back to, where like you could say retreat. Sometimes back itself wasn't even needed because I think I said like retreated back at some point. It's like retreating already implies you're going back, so I didn't need that. Another one was eyes. I had 320 times, got that down to 247. Even, that was 234, got it down to 184. I got the word before from 325 to 238. The word only from 205 to 153. Word light, which I could not cut down as much, was 200 when I started, and I got it down to 145. I have to switch arms because my shoulder, I slept bad, and I just can't hold it up that long, and I'm too lazy to put you on the tripod. I checked so many words. Like, there are probably 40 or so words on this list that I went through, and it was exhausting because you're going from, you know, you do the Control F to find the word, and then you go through the document with each word and check it how many times is it on the page. And there were a few instances that were easier because you could see, oh, I used that like within 2 paragraphs, I used it 4 times, and you can see them highlighted. So those are a lot easier to edit. I just went a little above and beyond and checked every single one. If it was something that is needed and I'm missing, I think my editor is going to tell me that once she goes through it. But Lord, this was daunting. Yeah, I think I may have gone a little overboard on it, but I do think it turned out better. And like I said, I got my word count down just from getting rid of excess words, which if you're on a word count crunch, you need to do that. Obviously, there is not a magic number for how many times a word should appear, but I know ones that I do use a lot because of the setting, where I'm using like fire and warm and cold and light and dark and all that, but there's still the necessity to it, and I've gone over that a bit earlier in the video. It's definitely worthwhile, and I do think it will help you if you are able to do any of it, even if it's just 1 or 2 words that you know are your like crutch words or crutch phrases, because your editor will point that out. And anything that they don't need to work on, they can find other mistakes for you. In my opinion, do what you gotta do. It was a learning experience for me from even book 1 to now. So yeah, I'm curious to see what my editor says. Now it is time to get back to the stream, so I will let you guys go. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you have any questions about my editing process, I don't try to give out too much writing advice because I know I'm not the best, but I can at least give you my experience on it. Definitely leave those questions in the comments below. Follow me on Instagram or TikTok if you're into those things. I'm kind of weird over on TikTok sometimes, and I try to be like promotional for my book, but it doesn't always work out that way. I'm just having fun with it. And then Instagram does a lot more of my art postings as well. So if you're into that, check out those, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.